So there are these three players, and they all have stamina, enjoyment, and willpower. Like, that's the stats that you have. So stamina, think of it like natural ability, talent, something like that. Enjoyment, how much fun you actually have. And willpower is like kind of the power of forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do. Doesn't matter that you don't have fun, you're just gonna like force yourself to do it. All right, so let's introduce these three players. Okay, so we've got player one. Okay, so this person, let's say, what's their stat distribution? Maybe they have like a decent amount of stamina, but not like too much. Maybe like, let's say they have like that much stamina. Okay. And how much enjoyment do they have? Not much. This person's kind of like me, or at least how I used to be. Not much enjoyment. How about willpower? Let's say they have quite a lot of willpower. They're willing to do a lot. So that's their distribution. In terms of stats, they have an okay amount of stamina, not a whole lot of enjoyment, almost none, and quite a bit of willpower. Okay, and then this down here is the progress. So let's say, see how there's like a black border? Aren't my graphics amazing? This represents like one unit of period of time. Let's say like 1 day, right? So within a day, they have this much stamina, this much enjoyment, and this much willpower to spend. And then this is their progress. Okay, so what about player two? Let's do the stats for player two. Okay, let's say player two has like very little willpower compared to player one. Maybe they have less stamina compared to player one. You can think of stamina also like natural talent, maybe, you know, if you're really good at something. But this player two has more enjoyment. And then there's player three. Let's just make a player three. What stats? Let's say player three doesn't really have willpower at all. Let's say they've got quite a bit of stamina. Okay. So they have stamina and they have enjoyment. It's like, it's not as much as player two, but they actually just don't have as much if you add their stats as the other two players. Okay, so now we have these three people. So this person's like, doesn't really enjoy what they do that much, but they can kind of do it. And then they're like, all right, I'm going to force myself. So let's say they do a lot of studies and they do a lot of work. Okay, so let's go through what their day looks like. Now, there's a bar up here. Every time you use too much willpower, you have to fill a slot. Okay? It's kind of like a meter to check. Okay, so already we have player one on day one using quite a bit of willpower. So let's give them, they use some willpower, right? Day one. Okay, player two does use willpower as well. So it'd be like, boop. But they have enjoyment. Now the perk of enjoyment is it cancels out any red from willpower. So there's this much enjoyment, right? There's only this much willpower being used. So player two doesn't actually build up any negatives, whereas player one does. See, this is how much enjoyment they have. This is how much willpower. The red is going to overpower the green. They're going to get a hit. Okay. So now we have that. All right. So let's do another day. So now this is the next day. They have same amount of stats, but they're going to take on another hit, right? Because they use willpower again to get through. Okay, boop. All right, so now, 2. All right, what's day 2 look like for player 2? Well, they just, they enjoy what they do. They have a bit of willpower. So day 2 looks like this. And what about player 3? Player 3 just, kind of enjoys himself. Don't really use any willpower. They keep going. Okay. But they're not making as much progress, you see? So maybe player 1 is like, all right, doing okay. Making quite a bit of progress. Player 2 is like, yeah, making a lot of progress. And player 3 is like, I'm kind of not making as much progress, but it's okay. All right, let's go another day. So this day, everyone's going to level up. So that's cool, right? We all get over the threshold and we level up because we keep working, keep doing what we do, and we leveled up. All right, so player 1, you leveled up. Player 2, you kept doing stuff, using your enjoyment. You leveled up too. Okay. And player 3, there, again, not so fast. But hey, you leveled up too, You made it. You're doing it. You're making progress. Slower, but you're making progress. But, what's happened to player 1? Well, player 1, they got all 3. So now what happened? What happens now to player 1? Well, player 1 used all their willpower, and they were doing it, but now they got burnout. So now, player 1 is out. They can't do stuff anymore because they're burnt out. Okay, so now what? Well, they used too much willpower. They didn't enjoy what they were doing. Just kept forcing themselves. They got all depressed. Now they can't even work. They feel super bad all the time. Okay, so they didn't do anything. What about player 2? Player 2 enjoys what they do. They got willpower, but not too much. And they've got stamina. So they're still making progress. What about player 3, who was, kind of behind everyone else? Well, player 3 is now ahead of player 1. So what happened, guys? It's like, this player 1 was doing okay, right? But, see, when you force yourself to do stuff you don't want to do, and you don't enjoy yourself, you start to build up a lot of stress, and it's taxing. It's hard to do this. And when I was in this situation, I was kind of looking at the player 3s of the world and thinking, like, at least I'm making more progress than player 3. It can't compete. Like, player 2, fine. They're just as good. But player 3 is like, yeah, they're behind. But not if you get burnt out, because then you're out of the game, and they keep going. And so, you just keep going, and player 3 can keep improving, but then when you get burnt out, it can really slow you down. And maybe that just cost you some time, right? Eventually, player 1 will get back in the game. They're going to be able to continue. And so their burnout bar, they're not in burnout anymore. But what happened in that time when they were in burnout? Well, player 2 didn't get burnt out. So player 2's still going. I'm trying to find player 2's bar. Okay, here's player 2's bar. Player 2's like way ahead now. And you can see what's going to happen over time is, let's say player 1's burnout bar is back to normal. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, but no, they just added willpower again, so they're back to trouble. You can see over time, This is just going to be where player 1 is eventually going to be just getting more and more behind because they're not enjoying things. Whereas player 2 and 3 are still going to get ahead. Eventually player 3 is going to be ahead even though they don't have willpower. So what I'm trying to say is willpower is good so long as you have enjoyment. If you have willpower and enjoyment, that seems to be the most important thing. Stamina, it's like, yeah, you can have stamina, you can have natural ability, but it doesn't feel like that's the main thing. It feels like enjoyment is the most important thing, because if you enjoy what you do, then even if you don't have too much willpower, you're not forcing yourself to do anything, you're never getting burnt out. So what I encourage people to do, if they're thinking like, they're asking me, what should I do? The first thing I always say is do what you like. The reason I'm saying do what you like is because I'm trying to say use enjoyment, use fun, use the green bar to fuel most of what you do. You make progress by doing stuff. If you're not doing stuff, then you're kind of like player 1 getting burnt out or just not doing work. So you're not going to make as much progress, right? Because you're just not putting in the time. So yeah, don't get burnt out by forcing yourself to do stuff. If it feels like you have to, like, I'm not having fun, I just have to force myself and then I'll beat other people, you won't. It's a road to burnout. You will eventually, even if you in the beginning it feels like, yeah, it's working, eventually it gets pretty crippling. And when you see the people who just have enjoyment and not willpower kind of passing you, it can feel really demoralizing, because maybe you're like working and grinding and you're doing like 10 hours a day and they're doing like an hour, but eventually they're getting better, they're progressing faster than you, and you don't know how or why. It's because willpower has a cost to it. And unless you have more enjoyment than willpower and you're actually having fun doing what you want to do, it's gonna cost you. So what do? Well, make sure you enjoy what you're doing. Make sure you ask yourself, like, do I really like this? And if not, what do I like? What would be more fun? And don't just force yourself to do things you don't want to do, because in the long run, it just backfires. All right. So that's my little graphic explanation of things. I hope this helps, and thanks for watching.